Hi everyone, Rob here at the Edge Power Sports. We're going to do something a little different this time. We've got the bike. We picked out an amazing machine. So we've got any of our E3s, our SX50s in the gas powered. We've got the E2s that are in the smaller version of the electric bikes here. So a lot of different versions. We've got the Cobras that we also here have at the dealership, the DRZ50. So all these things are awesome machines, and hopefully we can get one picked out for your little pilot at home. But after we've got the bike, we've got the gear. Now we got to talk about how we're going to work with our kids and keep them safe out there and actually help them out in this process, especially if it's a new adventure for them. Maybe they haven't even been on two wheels yet. So we're just going to brush up on a little bit of hand signals, something that you as parents can use out there and really help your kiddo out in their little endeavor. Maybe you've got some adults that you're working with as well that could benefit from this. So all these things will really help out. Luckily, dirt's a little more forgiving than street. Some of my background, I was actually an MSF instructor for about 16, almost 17 years. Teach road racing courses at our local racetrack, UMC, and teach supermoto racing. I race supermoto. So a lot of these little things might help you out in your endeavor on even just becoming a better rider yourself. So let's kind of talk about some of the basics. Where a lot of our pilots get in trouble is riding posture. So what we typically I try to instill in people is trying to get that mantra of riding like a pro, how a pro would ride. Now, yeah, all pros ride fast, they catch mad air, but it's technique that's involved. Riding posture, where we're sitting on the bike, how we're having our heads, how our elbows are up in the air, all these little things, that's how a pro rides. So every time they get on the bike, it's not loose and lackadaisic, there's actually a process. Their feet are in the right position, toes into the frame a bit, locked into those heels. That way they're steady on the bike, keeping those arms nice and relaxed. So I'm gonna get this bike pulled out here, and my cohort behind the camera here will basically, out in the real world, you would be where they were standing. Because as a coach, as a parent coach, or just as a coach out there, you don't want to be talking into your pilot's ear, your kid's ear, your friend's ear while they're trying to ride, because that means all their focus is going to be up here. So really your whole goal is when you're working with them, get out in the distance so that they can see you. That's going to promote that head and eyes up posture, and that's going to also help you evaluate what they're doing on the bike. You can watch for little things, like how is their wrist position. If they're starting out with a high risk position, you know that's going to be a bad situation. It just comes down to that whiskey throttle, because as soon as the bike takes off, that bike's taking them for a ride and they don't have any control over that throttle. So when you're working with your new pilot, your friends or whatnot, coach them into approaching that throttle with a wrist down position. That way it's just little movements like that versus big stuff like that, and that's going to keep them a little safer in that process. If you see them starting out with a high risk, maybe work with them on some hand signals, like you smacking your wrist. Basically, that's a big no-no, and coach them to get their wrist down to a proper position. Now, as far as if you've got a clutch bike, clutch is always going to be the safety valve for the bike. If things start getting out of control, doesn't matter how high they've got that throttle blipped up. As soon as they pull that clutch in, it's going to disconnect that power. The bike will slowly coast to a stop. Nice thing about dirt, it's a little more forgiving. It's not as brutal as asphalt can be. So if they fall down, big deal. It's not the end of the world. Unless body parts are hanging out of their gear, you should be okay. So what I'd really encourage you as coaches, not to freak out. Just if it's your kid down the dirt, yeah, it sucks, but 9 times out of 10, they'll pick themselves up and they'll brush themselves off. If you act freaked out, they're going to soak in that energy, and they're probably going to end up freaking out as well. So treat it as a positive situation. Oh, you tanked it. Let's get back up and let's rock and roll again. Let's make it happen. So be positive in that, be encouraging, and hope they'll pick up that energy off of you. It's not the end of the world. We're all going to fall down and eat some dirt every once in a while. That's part of playing in on these things, and that's why we wear all our gear and prepare for that, because if it does happen, big deal. You stand up, shake it off, and get back on the bike, make it happen again. So talking all about getting back on the horse. I've had an issue when I was younger, and had a little issue out on the track, and buddy of mine told me, here, take my bike, get back out on the track. Changed everything. My confidence came back, I shook it off, and I was right back into play again. So that's really an important part, is encouraging them in a positive manner on being excited about the situation, not freaking out, and even if you see them tank it a little bit. So wrist position, kind of back on that. Getting that wrist smacked down to where they're in that proper position. If you see them dropping down with their elbows and kind of loose like this, they don't really have any control or leverage over the bars. So we want to have those elbows up to where we've got that good leverage. If any bumps hit or any ruts, we can control that versus being down like that and not having a whole lot of pressure. So your goal is chicken wings up, get those elbows up, and that's going to coach them to get those elbows up in that position. If they're riding around, it's okay to cover your front brakes with a couple fingers. Teach them that instead of jumping or mashing or stabbing brakes, squeeze or squeeze more is a good application. Even in an aggressive situation, if we're squeezing and using progressive input on that brake, it's not going to lock up that front tire. It's going to be a progressive fork dive. Coach them that when they do go to their brakes, that fork dive is okay. That's a good feeling. We want to feel that fork dive compress down to put a little more weight up on that front wheel. That actually loads up a little more traction up on that front tire for the turns as well. So squeeze is a good magic word. It's okay with that 2 fingers. If your pilot's a little smaller, maybe even just 1 finger, you can adjust that lever. A lot of our brake systems are pretty powerful braking systems. In fact, if you added up the numbers, your brake systems are actually more powerful than the motor, so it works out pretty slick. If they've got a rear brake on their hand, coach them on that as well. Squeeze instead of jump or stab or mash on that. All these little inputs will help out. Now, the other thing that is going to help you out as a coach to work with your pilots out there, work on hand signals for their head turns. Right? I even see this in a lot of motocross racing. It always kind of confused me where vision's right down there. Well, we can still see that stuff. We've already seen it as we approached it. Get that head turn, look ahead of your bike, get ahead of the moment. So work on those head turn signals using that chin instead of just with our eyeballs. Eyes out, getting that vision out in the distance is a good hand signal, or chin up and eyes out. That's going to help them get their vision looking out towards you as well. Now, if they are starting out on a clutch bike and they've never operated one of those, a really good process is you get them into first, you get them fired up, get them used to working that, squeezing that clutch and using that hand motion of releasing that in and squeezing it back out. Remember, we don't want to treat it like a light switch. It's always progressive movements. So after you've worked with that exercise on just working that clutch hand and refining that hand movement, you can get them fired up, have them with the clutch pulled in, get the bike into first gear, and all they're going to do is they're going to lean back on their heels, ease that clutch out just enough to ease it up on their toes and squeeze it back in. Get them to work with that for a little bit. If you've ever taken any courses, this exercise might be very, very familiar with a street course. So just working on keeping the eyes up, let them listen to the bike, just working that friction zone in and out. Like I said, if it gets a little out of control, coach them to get that clutch pulled back in to disconnect that power from the rear wheel. While all this is going on, I encourage you to be standing in front of them, and that way they can work on keeping those eyes up. After they're kind of bored of doing that for a little bit, coach them on taking a few power steps on using that friction zone and then squeezing it back in, using the friction zone for squeezing it back in. Once they're comfortable, have them start on taking a couple steps, easing that clutch out all the way and picking their feet up onto the pegs. As a newer rider, what's going to help them out is, as a newer rider, coach them on getting the knees into the tank. That's going to keep them a little more balanced as well. So smacking your knees while you're standing out in front of them, if their knees are a little flaily out, that's going to be a good indicator for them to get their knees back in. As they become more of a proficient dirt rider, you're going to find that you don't want to be locked into the bike like that. You want to have the bike a little more free flow up underneath you, so you're going to be locking in with your heels and your ankles on those pegs versus your knees. So, but that's as we progress as better riders out there and getting more relaxed on moving that bike up underneath it and letting it dance a little bit too. The other thing will help out, light grips, baby birds in our hands. It's a term we always used to use. We don't want to squeeze the life out of our grips. That's going to help us from getting forearm pumps. So just enough to keep the bird from flying out of our hands, but not squeezing the feathers off of them. So that's a nice little way to coach them as well. So once those things start coming into play, start working on some braking. Get them used to that straight line braking. It's really easy. Any of us can go fast in a straight line. You can stick a giant elephant on a bike and just teach them how to work the throttle. It's easy for them to go fast. But it's a true motorcyclist that learns how to brake and corner properly. So work on those straight line brakings, getting that progressive squeeze going down, working on that rear brake as well. So all these little tidbits can help out on the braking process. I think that about kind of covers it, gang. That's kind of some little tips that I usually coach with a lot of parents. Hopefully that kind of helps your little excursion out with your pilot out there. Now, like I said, be positive. It's going to be a new situation for them. They're going to be a little freaked out. They can pick up off of you if you're getting frustrated. So sometimes we just got to let them fly and let them do their thing. Let them taste a little bit of dirt every once in a while. And hopefully these hand signals will work out good for you. Another thing that might help out too is if your pilot's coming off an electric bike, an e-bike, where it's a little quieter, and maybe these the two-stroke bikes sound a little rowdy for them. Earplugs definitely help. That's going to help settle things down. It's going to help them be more relaxed with rolling on that throttle and not being as freaked out about all that noise. So hopefully all these little tips help out, gang. If you have any questions, hit us up on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. You can give us a call here at the shop. We'd love to spend some time with you. If you have questions about bikes, gear, we can definitely get you set up on all of that. So hopefully see you soon, gang. Take care.